Good evening, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to our specimen paper series here at the Sea Results Academy. Of course, we're doing the ELA paper now, and we're doing tasks 4 to 6 today, right? So, beginning with comprehension, task 4 nonfiction, the instructions go read the passage on this page using complete sentences, answer questions 19 to 24. 100-year-old turtle and hatchlings at Emperor Valley Zoo. A 100-year-old South American river turtle that laid eggs during the coronavirus shutdown is now a proud mother to 18 hatchlings at the Emperor Valley Zoo. Coincidentally, the news was announced on World Environment Day that is celebrated on June 5th every year. The Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries said that the event was an auspicious one. 100 years old, 18 babies. Today on World Environment Day 2020, we celebrate the arrival of 18 hatchlings from the eggs laid during the COVID-19 lockdown by the Emperor Valley Zoo's 100-year-old South American river turtle. Just over 2 months ago, the zoo announced that the turtle laid eggs on land within its enclosure instead of the pond it had previously occupied. The zoo felt this was due to the closure of the facility in mid-March and the comfort the turtle may have felt in venturing out of the pond and onto the sandy area to deposit the eggs. The hatching was an excellent news and demonstrated the importance on World Environment Day of striking the balance between human activity and care for nature. As the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said in his 2020 message, to care for humanity, we must care for nature. The turtle laid the eggs in April 2020 while the zoo was closed during the coronavirus lockdown. Zoological officers believe that with less foot traffic, the turtle felt comfortable enough to finally make a burrow on land and lay her eggs. Zoological officer Charlene Khan said the South American river turtle is one of the largest freshwater turtle species in the world. The giant South American river turtles are highly aquatic. Typically, the females only leave the water to bask and lay 50 to 150 eggs at communal nesting sites during the dry season. They eat primarily fallen fruits and seeds. Other items in their diet include vegetation, aquatic invertebrates, and insects. The South American river turtle is listed as conservation dependent by the International Union for Conservation of Nature. This means that its survival is dependent on conservation efforts to prevent it from becoming threatened with extinction. And this passage has been adopted from the Luke TT website. So now let's have a look at the questions and the answers that were provided by Miss Naila. So the questions go number 19, 100 years old, 18 babies in lines 4 to 5, right? When was this announcement made? So if you return to the passage, we'll see that the announcement was made on June the 5th, right? And in what year? 2020. Okay, so we have the announcement was made on the 5th of June 2020. On what occasion was the announcement made? Well, the announcement was made on World Environment Day, also on paragraph 1 of the passage. Okay, so what we'll advise you to do, people, is to read through all of the questions, have an idea of the questions, and then you can skim back through the passage and look for the areas where the answers might be, and then start to tackle the questions one at a time, right? Number 20 says, give the meaning of the word auspicious as used in line 4. So let's go to line 4. So line 4 is the sentence begins on the third line. The Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries said that the event was an auspicious one. 100 years old, 18 babies, today on World Environment Day. Okay, so the meaning of auspicious here is, the occasion is a momentous one. It's one of good fortune, remarkable, special, and notable because, it's during the lockdown. The turtle is 100 years old. It manages to have 18 hatchlings, right? And the announcement is coinciding with World Environment Day. So it's a lot of good things coming together and even some unlikely things there, right? So that's why we say momentous, of good fortune, remarkable, special, and notable, right? So, of course, not all of these words are the textbook or dictionary definition of auspicious, even though some of them are, right? However, we have to give the definition in the context as it is used, right? So the word auspicious here means all of these things or anything that you can give that suitably conveys that meaning. And in number 21, to care for humanity, we must care for nature. That is in line 14. Do you agree with the opinion of Antonio Guterres? And explain your answer. Okay, so that can be found on line 14 of the passage. To care for humanity, we must care for nature. All right, so do you agree? And yes, we agree because nature is part of our everyday lives. And if we don't take care of animals, for example, animals are a part of nature, it can disrupt our food chain or any appropriate answer, right? So, of course, we exist as human beings within nature. So, there's a codependency between us and nature, right? To care for ourselves, we have to care for the environment and for the world in which we live, right? We live in a natural world, and our survival depends on our taking care of that. If we take care of it, it takes care of us, all right? So this is one example here with the food chain, but you can also put any appropriate answer, as much detail as you would like, reasonably within the space provided. Okay, so number 22, why did the turtle lay eggs after such a long time? So it is believed that due to the closure of the facility and less foot traffic, the turtle felt comfortable enough to make a burrow on land and lay her eggs, right? So this is also found in the passage. So zoological officers believe that with less foot traffic, the turtle felt comfortable enough to finally make a burrow on land and lay her eggs. Okay, what are two foods eaten by a river turtle? So the passage gives a lot of items that the turtle would consume. So we just have to pick out some. So it says they eat primarily fallen fruits and seeds. So that is the main diet of the turtle, but it also includes vegetation, aquatic invertebrates, and insects. So you just have to give two out of those, right? Of course, Miss Naila listed several here to show that you have options. So select two pieces of evidence in paragraph 4 that suggests that the river turtle can become an endangered species. So the two pieces of evidence are that the turtle is listed as conservation dependent by the IUCN. And what does that mean? It means that its survival is dependent on conservation efforts to prevent it from becoming threatened with extinction, right? So we give those two pieces of detail, right? Survival is dependent on conservation efforts to prevent it from becoming threatened with extinction, and they are listed as conservation dependent by the IUNC. If you worked at the zoo, what would you do to encourage the turtles to lay more eggs? So I would place the turtles in more secluded areas so they would feel more comfortable to lay eggs, or I would limit the number of persons visiting the zoo to see the turtles, some combination of that, right? So the turtles seem to have been more comfortable, or the turtles seem to have been more comfortable laying eggs when there was less human traffic around it. It felt more comfortable to come out and to uh, lay its eggs. So therefore, you want to recreate that and on a more consistent basis, even when people are allowed to return to the zoo, right? All right, guys, so we're getting to the end of the paper here very soon. Okay, so we're on task 5. This should actually say task 5, poetry. Read the poem, A Dog's Mistake, on this page using complete sentences. Answer questions 26 to 32. A dog's mistake. He had drifted in among us as a straw drifts with the tide. He was just a wandering mongrel from the weary world outside. He was not aristocratic, being mostly ribs and hair, with a hint of spaniel parents and a touch of native bear. He was very poor and humble, and content with what he got, so we fed him bones and biscuits till he heartened up a lot. Then he growled and grew aggressive, treating orders with disdain, till at last he bit the butcher, which would argue want of brain. Now the butcher, noble fellow, was a sport beyond belief, and instead of bringing actions, he brought half a shin of beef, which he handed on to Fido, who received it as a right and removed it to the garden where he buried it at night. 'Twas the means of his undoing, for my wife who stood his friend, to adopt a slang expression, went in off the deepest end. For among the pinks and pansies, the gloxinias and the gorse, he had made an excavation like a graveyard for a horse. Then we held a consultation which decided on his fate. 'Twas in anger more than sorrow that we led him to the gate, and we handed him the beef bone as provision for the day. Then we opened wide the portal and we told him, on your way. This was written by Banjo Patterson. So here we have some words that we probably won't know. So a gloxinia is a flowering house plant, and gorse is a dark green bush with small yellow flowers, right? So those were two words there in the poem that we probably would not have known on line 15 there. Okay, so let's move on to the questions. Let's see what Miss Naila has to say. So number 26, what action of the dog in stanza 2 shows that it was not very smart? He bit the butcher despite being fed by him, right? So that is not very smart at all. Okay, and that reminds us of the famous saying, don't bite the hands that feed you, right? So that is what shows that he's not very smart. And that comes from stanza 2, right? He growled and grew aggressive till at last he bit the butcher, which would argue want of brain, right? Which would argue want of brain. Want of brain means that he's not very smart, he's not using his upstairs, right? So number 27 reads, he was just a wandering mongrel. Line 2, why is this an appropriate description of Fido, right? So the wandering part, he did not belong to anyone or any place. He walked around aimlessly, and the word mongrel means that it is applied to a dog that is not of a special, unique breed, right? So both of those things are found, right? So he was wandering, he was not aristocratic, being mostly ribs and here with a hint of spaniel parents and a touch of native bear, all right? So no definite breed there. So therefore, this is an appropriate description of Fido. Okay, give the meaning of each of the following words as used in the poem Heartened. Okay, so let's go to line 6. Line 6 said, so we fed him bones and biscuits till he heartened up a lot. Remember, before that, he was poor and humble, content. He was mostly ribs and hair, right? We fed him bones and biscuits till he heartened up a lot. So here in this context, the word heartened means that he was fattened, right? He put on some size by being fed those bones and biscuits. I'm sure you've heard the expression, to have a hearty meal or to have a hearty breakfast or something like that. Okay. And then the next word that we have to give the meaning of is used in the poem. So the word portal, which can be found here in line 20 of the poem, right? It means then we opened wide the portal and we told him on your way. Remember, they led him to the gate, right? They gave him his provision for the day and they opened wide the portal. So here the portal means a gate, exit, or doorway, right? But specifically in the poem, it refers specifically to the gate that they led him to, right? So number 29, identify a simile used in the poem, right? So we're going to be looking for some keywords here that are used to make comparison between two things, like and as. So we only have to give one, identify a simile, but Miss Naila identified two here for you. One of them is found in the very first stanza. He drifted in among us as a straw drifts with the tide, right? And then there's another one a little lower down. He had made an excavation like a graveyard for a horse, right? So likening the hole that he dug as a hole to bury a horse in, okay? All right, so we'll move on to number 30. What do you understand about the wife's behavior from the line went in off the deepest end? Okay, so where is that found? Let's have a look. It's found in line 14. Okay, it was the means of his undoing, for my wife who'd stood his friend to adopt a slang expression went in off the deepest end. Okay, so what does that mean? So the dog went and he dug up a hole in her garden And of course, by the description of the garden here, it seems to be a very beautiful garden, well tended to. So the wife who once stood his friend became furious and displeased that he destroyed her garden, and now she wanted him gone, right? So she went in off the deepest end means that she became furious and displeased with the dog. Okay, so here in number 31, we actually have a table to complete. So we have persons in the poem, we have a quality that describes them, and we have to find evidence. Okay, so in this question here, actually only the wife being the person and the quality kind was given, and we have to find evidence. So the only evidence here, direct evidence of a kindness, was the means of his undoing for my wife, who withstood his friend. Okay, and then, well, of course, that is found in this stanza, which I believe is the fourth stanza, right? And then they just give Fido's name, and we have to give him some qualities and find evidence from the poem. So two qualities that are found is that he is aggressive and he is also ungrateful, right? And the evidence from the poem is he growled and grew aggressive. Okay, that is one piece of evidence for his aggression. Treating others with disdain. Okay, also could be for his aggression, his crass behavior, right? And he bit the butcher, which shows his ingratitude, and he received the beef from the butcher as it is a right. So even though the butcher didn't have to give him this beef, he received it readily from the butcher as though it's something that he expects, something that he has to get. That's what they mean by he received it as a right. Okay, and number 32, if you were the butcher, would you have brought beef for Fido? Give a reason for your answer. Okay, so you can be in one of two states here. You can just simply be one of those ultra kind people, which I mean, 9 out of 10 times you probably should try to be as kind as possible, but then there are also those who would not take Fido's behavior at all. They would have no patience with it. They would not put up with it one bit. So you have to give a reason here, right? So you can choose a position and defend it. So one position is yes, because he was a stray dog in need of food and someone to treat him kindly. Or you could say no, because he was aggressive and he had already bit the butcher despite his generosity, right? Or anything along those lines. All right, guys, so here's our final task in this ELA paper, which is task 6, the graphic. Okay, so the instructions go: read the web page below using complete sentences, answer questions 33 to 36. So here we have a nice web page here for the Ministry of Education School Learning Management System. Okay, we have some nice graphics going on. We have to log in using your Office 365 account. You have some opportunity here to create an account if you don't have one. You can retrieve your username or your password if you've forgotten it. And we have some images, right? We have the coat of arms of our Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and we have, some other tech-related images around there. All right, so let's see what the questions ask and what Miss Naila said, right? So the questions on web page are: list 2 pieces of information required to access the web page. So the 2 pieces of information that we need to access this web page are the username and the password, right? The username and the password. Question 34, give 2 reasons why the remember username feature is on the web page. So 2 reasons that that is there is: 1, in case you forget this information, the computer will have it saved for you, right? So that is one reason why you might want the computer to remember your username, so that in case you forgot it, the computer remembers, right? Or for convenience, right? So you don't have to enter it each time you access the web page. It will already be typed in there for you and stored. So those are 2 reasons why you would remember your username. Select 2 images based on the web page and state their purpose, right? So we have multiple images here. Okay, so Ms. Naila listed almost all of them, right? Basically all of them: the keyboard, the mouse, the USB flash drive that looks like a phone/tablet, and some books, right? So of course, a mouse is used for pointing, selecting text, icons, etc. Keyboard is used for typing and other various types of input, right? The USB flash drive is used to store and transfer data. Books, of course, are used for getting information on certain topics or subjects, and the tablet or phone is your access point for the online material, right? You use that to access the online material, be it classes or be it other online resources like the learning management system, right? Number 36 reads, does this web page encourage you to visit the site? Give a reason for your response. So yes, because the images are showing you what the school learning management system entails, and it encourages you to want to learn more about it, right? Or any other suitable response that conveys that sort of meaning. And you can also say something about the design, right? It looks very user-friendly here, at least here on this landing page. Very nice graphics and so on, very welcoming, right? So that is another reason why it might encourage you to visit this site. And that is the end of the test. All right, people. So thank you so much for viewing. Thank you so much for viewing all of our videos in this specimen paper series, the mathematics as well as the ELA. Remember, we have all of those videos from the previous seasons as well that you can look at, where we have many topics covered in depth. Okay, so I know you're winding down now in terms of your preparation. So you may not want to go too deeply into that at this point in time, but I'm sure a lot of you have been based on what I've been seeing there, tracking the views and so on YouTube. So that leads me to my next point, which is please like the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, give us a like on Facebook, or your parents can give us a like on Facebook or a follow on Instagram. All right, and share this video, people. Thank you so much for watching and for being here on this journey with us, and we wish you, of course, the very best. We ask the Almighty to bless you and to guide you in your exam on Thursday, and of course we look forward to hearing from you when you've written the exam and also when the results are out, right? So take care for now, and as always, continue to see results. Good evening. Assalamu alaikum.